Fergus Ewing is the Scottish Government's Cabinet Secretary for the Rural Economy, and he joins me now. Good morning, Fergus. How are you doing?
Morning, Mark. I'm fine. Yourself?
Absolutely grand, thanks. No bother at all. Now, normally we would both be at Ingliston. I'd be running around trying to make a radio programme, and you would be addressing the prestigious QMS industry breakfast with your notes in one hand and a half-eaten bacon roll in the other, usually. But circumstances have changed. Things are different. As Cabinet Secretary, looking back over the last 3.5 months, how do you think the Scottish red meat industry have actually coped with the situation?
I think they've coped extremely well. They've kept going despite the practical difficulties from farmer, abattoir, processor, hauliers, feed merchants, markets. They've all kept going. They've all worked how to do so in a safe manner, looking after everybody involved. They produce the food for the country, and that's something that maybe people won't just take quite so much for granted anymore. In other words, value farmers for the high quality food they produce, and the way they look after their animals with the highest standards, I think, of welfare that match anywhere in the world. So I'm hoping, Mark, that one of the possible consequences of COVID as we come out of lockdown is that people think a bit more about their food, where it comes from, buy local. Think about the producer and all the hard work that's gone into producing some of the finest food in the world.
It's a demonstrable fact at the moment that people are doing just that. They are shopping locally. They are trying to buy local, which is much to be desired. But that might change as we come out of lockdown. Is there anything the Scottish Government can do to try and keep that phenomenon going?
Yes, I think there are things, and we are doing them. First of all, we can sell ourselves, our story, and I'm delighted that Quality Meat Scotland, led by Kate Rowell and Alan Clark, are leading the way and promoting our high quality Scotch meat. And secondly, we can work with the major retailers and the food to go companies to promote and to sell more high quality Scotch produce. And I did want to say a bit about that because it's really important, I think, to anyone that will be likely watching this podcast. We've been working really hard to speak to the bosses at the major supermarkets, all of them, every single one of them. And we've been doing that over the past 3 months of lockdown. And also at a local level with each of them, meeting them to discuss how each of them can do more to support high quality Scotch meat, Scotch beef, pork, lamb, as well as our dairy, our potatoes, vegetables, and of course our fish. And we've been doing that in a systematic way, urging them that as, if you like, a COVID change, they do support Scottish first. And they do support our colleagues down south as well in other parts of the UK, rather than import meat from Poland or Ireland or elsewhere. So there's more emphasis on local production. And we've been doing that in a way, not beating them over the head with it. I don't think that as a tactic is ever particularly successful. Rather, I've been saying to them, look, you do good things at the moment. Why not do even more to support Scottish producers? And I'm seeing some signs, Mark, that campaign is bearing fruit. But you're right, how do we maintain that post-COVID? Well, we carry on and we tell the story and we use our influence and encourage the UK government to use its influence for the same purpose.
How are the Scottish Government going to ensure that support payments are targeted at farmers who are efficient or providing public goods, whilst also ensuring new business can access land, training, advice, that kind of things?
Well, we will continue to administer the payment scheme with the aim of ensuring that all active farmers, and there's around about 19,000 who submit the forms each year, continue to receive their support payments on time. In fact, the last couple of years, I believe the Scottish farmers received payments in October 2 weeks earlier than some others, or slightly earlier than others elsewhere in the UK. So So my job is a very, very important part of my job is actually just to make sure that the schemes are properly administered, because they're not really support payments in the sense that they are earned, I believe. They're not subsidies, they are earnings by farmers for food production and countryside stewardship as well. So how do we make sure that the money gets across the right way? Well, I believe that in supporting active farmers and crofters, we're doing that, but we want to continue to improve, to encourage productivity and efficiency, and also mark green farming. And Jim Walker is chairing a group at the moment, which will report fairly soon about how to have sort of more green practice in beef cattle farming. And therefore, we want to target the support increasingly for ever more sustainable methods of farming. And I think that gels with the public mood and desire to support only those types of farming that are done sustainably and looking after the countryside as well as the animals. But above all, I want to make sure that things are administered efficiently and effectively. And I'm delighted to say that, you know, we have achieved the target, the EU target for the Pillar 1 payments this year, earlier than before, even although, Mark, many of the staff are actually working from home in lockdown. They've actually managed to achieve a better performance than ever before, even although they haven't been at the office.
4 months ago, I would say that the general driver was, you know, we want farmers to do what they do in a way that actually produces environmental benefit. 3.5 months ago, the shelves were empty in the supermarket, and all of a sudden the focus went back onto food. Do you think it's still on food?
I think it is partly at the moment, but you know, I think obviously the high level focus has been on other events of late. But you know, I think I was going to say the man in the street, but the man in the street's not actually in the street at the moment. He's in a flat somewhere probably. But you know, everybody knows that farmers have kept going during COVID. They've carried on working without the same amount of help that they normally have. You know, I gather some farmers my age, i.e. the wrong side of 50, sadly have been shedding weight as their hair is extending over their shoulders because of unaccustomed manual work that used to be done by, you know, other labour that's now no longer available. So, you know, joking aside, you know, farmers have really put in a shift over these past 3 months. Busy time of year, keeping the show on the road. And I hope and expect the public will appreciate that. And certainly part of my job is to make sure they do.
Brexit's obviously looming, and there are serious concerns about imports coming in here that don't meet our rigorous standards of production. Can you, as a Scottish government, actually protect the Scottish farmer from that?
Well, I think we must, in Britain, do so. I've had good discussions in the past with the various farming secretaries that I've had. I think I'm on my 4th or 5th now in the UK. You know, from Andrea Leadsom through to George Eustace. George is a farmer. I've worked closely with him on the fishing side, so I've got to know him quite well. And you know, I think they certainly want to do this. I think there is a slight question mark about whether they will do it, Mark, and that's not meant to be political. You know, I was at an event that John Cameron arranged. John Cameron, the distinguished sheep farmer in Scotland, as you'll know. And he arranges with others for young people to go on a trip to learn about farming in other countries. And I spoke to this group of about 10 or 12 young people. They came back from California, and they told me about the story of beef cattle rearing in California. There was no provenance. No one knew where any cattle came from. The beasts were out there in the sun. They took protection under a kind of petrol station roof in the shade. The baking heat of the Californian desert sun. The dead bodies were pulled away by cowboys on ropes. Is that what people want? I don't think so. So I think we've got to tell some, you know, harsh truths about how animals are being reared in other countries in the world. And maybe do that to get the message across to the UK government that farmers, I think, wherever they are in the UK, are actually really worried about this because, you know, to take that example, this behaviour would not be acceptable in Scotland or the rest of the UK. But of course, because we have such high standards and regulation of abattoirs, quite rightly so, these put up the costs. So if other producers don't have these standards, these costs, these regulatory burdens, they can undercut our costs, even with the cost of transportation. So that plainly is not a level playing field. And that's something that I think is a real concern to farmers all over the UK. And I do hope the UK government sticks to the pledge that Michael Gove quite clearly made to me several times in meetings with him, that there would be legislation about this in a trade bill. There hasn't yet, but you know, that work, Mark, continues.
There's still a lot of imponderables out there. There's still a lot of unknowns. So briefly, what would be your message to Scottish farmers just for the year ahead?
Well, firstly, I think the public is very grateful for the work you've done through lockdown. And secondly, in what you do in producing high quality food and being the stewards of the countryside, my view is that the overwhelming majority of people in Scotland and Britain are on your side. And we in the Scottish Government are by your side.
Cabinet Secretary Fergus Ewing, thank you very much for your time. Nice speaking to you.
Thank you.